Johnny, you share it again?
Yes. Do you want me
Can we
to?
go to this camera first?
Yeah. Do you want me to stop?
Yeah, stop there.
I'm waiting for the go.
Can I go?
Okay, if everybody on Zoom can hear me, would you please wave your hand so our tech crew can see you? Do we have a confirm?
Kathy, you're very echoey.
I'm very what?
Echoey.
We need to mute ourselves.
Okay. I know how to fold well.
All righty, it's a go. Thank you very much.
First of all, thank you all for being here. And thank you to those people on Zoom. We love you too, but we really appreciate you being here in person for our guests tonight. And for the rest of us, we are always appreciative to see your real faces. Rather than 2D, we are into 3D. Yes. I'm Kathy Triolo. I'm the Vice President of the Camera Club. I'm taking over the duties for our President Rachel Rosenthal, who is traveling somewhere. She's Frankfurt, Germany, and I don't know where she's going from there. Does anybody know? Oh, she's going to Italy. Thank you. Sandy, somebody would know. So she's traveling. We have a number of people traveling. We have John Siebert, who might be on Zoom, going to Spain tomorrow. So we're very excited for all those travelers. And please don't come back with COVID. Thank you.
Or monkeypox.
Or monkeypox, yeah, or anything. Just come back healthy and have a good time and with lots of pictures. I want to thank our substitute crew tonight. Besides me taking over for Rachel, I want to thank Janice Rossner back there for taking over for Barbara.
Summers. Thank you, Janice. Barbara was unable to be with us tonight. And also subbing in for our normal audio guy, we have the super normal Mark Triolo. Thank you, Mark. Yay. Taking over for Craig Rorson on camera. This is like, you know, the band, right? The bass. Taking over on camera, it's Douglas Hooper. Yay. And steadfast as always, we have our other technical guy who does all the presentations, and that's George Palpel. Wave to everybody, please. Yay. All right, so first of all, welcome. I did that, yes. We are welcoming the Zoom people, welcoming the people here. We are recording. So people, Zoom, we're recording you. Behave. Yeah. I'd like to welcome any guests. Are there any guests here tonight? Raise your hand. Yay, 4 people back there. Thank you for joining us. Lovely to have you here. We have about 150 people normally who are members here. We don't ever get 150 people here. I can't remember that. But we have filled the room at one point with many people. So we're doing a hybrid meeting. We have, last month, we had 45 people here, 25 people on Zoom. So you know, not bad, right? What's that? Oh, nobody wants to admit they said something. It's okay. And also, are there any new members here? You just signed up? Oh, great. Hi. I'm going down to greet him. Hello, who are you?
Bill Harris. I'm actually a returning member. It's been about 5 years, but yeah.
Yeah, how long has it been?
I think around 5 years, but you know, years go by so fast that it could be 10. Okay.
I get that. Welcome back. What made you come back?
We had a dinner party with Bill Wages and Lori Humphrey, and talking to Bill, I said, yeah, I think I'll join the camera club again. That was a while ago. That was 6 months ago.
Okay, well, we've changed totally since then. So yeah, well, welcome. Anybody else a new member here? Hi there. Who are you? Tell us who you are. And
Martin Powell from, well, I've lived in Grass Valley area for about a year now, but I'm from Lone Pine, California.
oh, super. And we know Lone Pine around here. A lot of us have been down there.
For,
And
to the
tell us
Alabama
about your
Hills.
photography.
Predominantly a bird photographer, wildlife.
All right, we've got some great bird photographers here who share information with us. So welcome. And how did you hear about the club?
Sharon Rose.
Sharon Rose. All right. Thank you, Sharon. Are you here? No, you're not. All right. Anybody else a new member? Right. So welcome. I won't call you old members, but welcome seasoned members. All right. Okay. So going back to my list here, Photography Month for 2023. We had a very successful Photography Month 2022. You all, many of you participated. Thank you very much. Matter of fact, I think I can give Grace back there, and Ray over here, and Patricia awards for coming to every one of my photo walks. Thank you, ladies. They were very great. So we are going to be doing Photography Month again next year, the same 3 events. We'll be doing a Granucci show, thanks to the Granucci or Center for the Arts. They're letting us come back. We're doing the photo challenge at the Grass Valley Courtyard Suites, and we also will do photo walks. And our lovely Ray has volunteered to be the leader of the photo walk. Thank you, Ray. Edward Jones, we have an exhibit there that curated by Sheila Ryan and helped by her assistant, Jimmy Marcio. So thank you very much for doing that. See that exhibit? There's some beautiful pictures there. That's over at Edward Jones on Brunswick. Camera swap meet, that's a new one for you. We are having a camera swap meet June 27th, 4:30 here at the church. So there's no charge to buy or sell gear. And if you sell, you bring your own table for setup. And I'm sure that when Rachel will get something out with a little more detail, but put it on your calendar, June 27th. I think that's our next meeting date. So yeah, June, it's next month. I know, amazing, huh? Summer already. So that's that. Are there any other announcements from the floor? I do have one from David Wong. He is doing a workshop in Costa Rica with Josh Miller. And you all know how wonderful both of those guys are, right? So he has, I think, 2 more openings if you would like to go to Costa Rica in July. And there's all kinds of great information. And if you are interested, please come see me at the break and I will give you more information about David Wong and Josh Miller's traveling to Costa Rica. You're going to be in a lodge. You won't be traveling all over Costa Rica. It's a lodge specifically dedicated to photography. So it's great. They really do a wonderful job. All right. Anything else? All right, good. So now we're going to go into the presentation. And I'm just going to introduce our speaker for tonight. So John, who's sitting up front here. Hello, John. Yay. He's coming up here from Sacramento. We thank him for that. He began his journey in street photography in 2006, and he continues today. He just finished a workshop last Saturday at Viewpoint Gallery in Sacramento, teaching others what he's going to share with us in part today, I'm sure. And he also will tell you that he's going to be doing some more workshops on street photography, one particularly in San Francisco. There's no date yet, but I'll let him talk about that. John takes his camera with him everywhere, always ready to press the shutter trigger. Unposed, his subjects are often unaware that he has already taken their photo. And if they did, they're too late to give him a smile or hide one. He enjoys the thrill of capturing unscripted connections between people and the environment they move in. He's a professional photographer. And I'll let him talk about your current job if you want. He's a freelance journalist as well. He received a degree in photojournalism in San Francisco State. And when he's not photographing for work, he is doing what he loves best, which is street photography. And he will be sharing that with us tonight. So let's give John a big welcome.
All right, be here. Thank you for having me. Really, really excited. I know that we have a short time to talk about street photography. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of a taste of what we talked about last Saturday. Mark actually up there was he came for the workshop. It's a 3-hour workshop and it's an intro to street photography. Okay. And I want this presentation to be more of a conversation. So I won't be here having slides and showing you like a point by point. I want you guys to ask me a lot of questions. We only have an hour to talk about street photography, and there's a lot to talk about. Okay. Let's start with, what do you guys think of when we say street photography? Anybody? Random? Candid? Random, candid, one more. Natural light. Action. All right. Give me one more. Personal. Gotcha. Composition. All right. So we have random, we have candid, we have the personality of the person, we have the composition, and all of those are correct. But I think to be able to really identify what street photography is, we need to identify what it's not. Okay, and what it's not photojournalism. Okay, a lot of people might think that street photography is photojournalism because like it's a slice of life, right? You're out there taking pictures, something that is objective. But let me tell you, street photography is not objective. It's not photojournalism. You're not out there trying to show or share the news to anybody or what's happening around. You're there to show how you interpret what's happening. Does that make sense? Right? So it's very subjective, right? So whenever you approach street photography, it should come from a point of subjectivity, right? How do I want to share what I'm seeing in front of me right now, right? And it might be through composition, right? It might be showing a little bit of the personality of the person you're photographing, but it's still your opinion. It's still your subjective interpretation of what's in front of you. If you look at street photography this way, you're going to be successful in showing unique perspective, right? Because to tell you, if we all go right now and do street photography, we all go to the same street, each one of us will have different pictures if we show them on the screen. It might be slightly similar, but they're not going to be the same. So for example, if I go out there in the street and we're on, let's say in San Francisco, Market Street, right? Based on my experience, like my personal experience, I might be drawn to a person or an object that you might not even care about. I'm born and raised in the Philippines. I moved here when I was 20 years old. And so for me, everything was new, right? So even the size of the burger that you have here in the United States, right? That is, for me, it's amazing. The burgers that we have in the Philippines are really small. So if all of us, at that point in my life, go to what's a burger place that has a big burger, a Nation's Burger, right? And I remember that's actually the first American burger that I had. And if I picked up a camera back then, I would have taken a lot of pictures of that, right? But you wouldn't, because that's normal to you, right? We are in the same space, but not photographing the same thing, right? So let's approach street photography that way, okay? And for me, that's pretty much how I got into street photography. It was back in 2006. I was a student at San Francisco State, doing photojournalism as my major. And so I have been taking pictures for the school newspaper. And on my free time, I would, bring my camera with me and explore San Francisco. And there's this one time where I saw this beautiful light. It was like afternoon light, sunset, and there are pigeons on the ground right next to a trash bin. And I said, what if I sat here and wait for somebody to pass by. And I know if someone passed by, the pigeons will fly, right? And what if I get that right person, right? I need someone to have that right look to pass the pigeons by and I take the picture, right? And it take me some time waiting and waiting and waiting, but it probably is the longest, maybe 15 minutes that I was there. It's the longest 15 minutes. I already have my shutter, speed lock, my exposure lock, everything. I already pre-prepared, composed it. I'm just waiting for that person to pass by. And it did happen. And I'll show you the photo later. And it was magical. It was the first time I was like, there's something to this. And it's not photojournalism. It is something that I conjured in my head, right? Something that I imagined, something that I was hoping to happen. It did happen. It might not be the exact thing that you had in your head, but you pre-visualized it, right? So again, it's not objective. It is very subjective. So again, it's not photojournalism. It's not, magazine work for fashion, right? It is something, it's a form of art, right? It's a form of art and that it's, in itself, it's very unique. So I'm very happy that I found out about street photography. And so I would like to continue by showing you guys a video of photos that I've taken from a former exhibit that I did maybe like 6 years ago now at Viewpoint Gallery. It's called Grounded, and I did it with a friend of mine, Casey Leclerc, a very talented photographer as well. But the photos I'm going to show you are just the photos that I showed that day. Is that good? All right, so I'm gonna sync with Mark, play at the same time. All right. Yes. Share my screen real quick. Oh, I see. Okay. So I don't share, sorry. Just have to go right here. And I'm gonna let you know when I'm about to click play. Let me just do this real quick. And I'm gonna pull it back just a little bit here. All right, Mark, I'm clicking in 3, 2, 1.
Remembering all the things that we did when we were young. So many beautiful things. And I tell you, in time to come, someone will remember us.
All right. Oh, it's echoing. Questions? Yes.
Do you have a favorite lens, focal length for your street photography?
Hold on.
Okay. Do you have a favorite focal length for your street photography?
Yes, I do. I use my Fuji X100V. It is has a fixed focal length of 23 mil, but it's a 35 mil equivalent. The reason for that is this is a crop sensor. So if I'm shooting with a full frame camera, I would like to shoot with a 35 millimeter as well. I just find it to be wide enough so that it doesn't feel detached, but it's long enough that I can do portraiture without too much distortion. Yes, sir.
Do you get releases from the people whose faces are recognizable?
No.
Okay.
No, I have never asked for release. It's because like I've never had the intention of selling the image as for advertisement. From my understanding, and I can be wrong, that if you're doing it for art, as long as you don't advertise using that photo for your art form, that you have the ability to photograph and sell those images for art.
So I'm actually glad you had that image up that was just up there.
Uh-huh.
On an image like this, where you're waiting for them to be right behind the tree, do you take one image or you take a sequence of burst images and then pick the one that gives the, because you've got one shot at that image right there, right?
Yes, thank you for that question. I actually have a part of my presentation that kind of like the mystify the idea that street photographer somehow has the ability to just like get the shot. This takes a lot of work. This takes some time to get to this shot. That doesn't mean that it's you are I call it working the scene, right? So for example, for this shot in particular, my initial idea was when I saw this spot. So what I do first for most of the shots that I take, I pick my canvas. Okay, I pick my canvas. So for this image, the canvas is the non-moving items, the backdrop itself, right? The lighting is the same. It will stay the same for some time. The trees are not going to move. That trash, that paper is not going to move. My composition is always going to be the same. So I position myself to compose for that. I expose for it. Now I pre-visualize. I go, what can happen? And I hope this happens, right? So in my head, my initial idea why I picked this canvas is that so I can have 3 different people behind each tree. But I wasn't lucky enough, and I wasn't patient enough to wait for that. But it will happen. It probably did happen. It happened multiple times. I wasn't just there to photograph it. So yeah, to answer your question, it took me plenty of shots to get to this particular shot. And I have, in a little bit, I'll show you my contact sheet. I have 2 photos that I'm gonna show you what I took prior to the actual shot and what was the thinking, why I stopped to that shot and how I started to try to get that shot. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I noticed on a couple of shots that you did, there was some individual isolation to it, and you had some graphic composition to it. I think there was one with a guy way in the distance sitting on a chair and then a palm tree next to him. And then there was a lot of color at a certain angle below that. It was pretty nice. I just wondered if that's something you do.
Yes. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It is a palm tree. Just want to make sure that let's see. Is it this one right? No. Is it this one right here? No, palm tree. This one? No. This one? It's this one. Okay. So let me quickly talk about this photo real quick. This photo was taken with an iPhone, right? And so iPhones are great if you know the limitations of the iPhone, right? I think first thing you have to know about your camera is what are the limitations, because once you know the limitations, you can use it to its maximum capacity. So I know that iPhones are really good at bright scenes, right? And sometimes you can't even tell, right? If you're using a SLR or an iPhone, if the condition is suited for the phone. So yes, the use graphic, and then this is something that I talk about in depth in my street photography workshop. There's two parts to how I shoot. That's content versus form. And pretty much just to put it quickly, content is when I shoot for emotions, and then form is when I shoot for composition, color, lighting, and all that good stuff, right? So with this one, I was definitely going for form, right? And the way I got this shot was, the story behind this, I was invited by my cousin to go play basketball, pick up basketball in the neighborhood in Elk Grove. So I went, so I didn't plan on bringing my camera, but I had my phone with me. But then they're playing, I wasn't playing, and I saw the basketball courts right here. And then to the side, it's a skate park. So this guy was skating up and down, up and down, up and down. And I said, like, what if I get the shot right where there's no skateboard, but just like some kind of movement, some kind of motion that would give it like a surreal quality to it, right? So there's no sense of not really because then content, when we talk about content, these are scenarios that pulls the heartstrings, right? So for example, what are things that you would, once you see it, you feel something? Give me an example. Child holding a flower, right? Couples kissing, right? Someone saying goodbye at the airport, right? At that point, composition and aesthetically composing that is secondary. What's more important at that point is capturing that moment, and that's content. But it doesn't happen often. And so a lot of times I go for this kind of shots, right? Yes. Can you repeat what you said?
Turn on, here we go. It's very asymmetrical, but it's balanced at the same time. It's very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I have a question here.
So do you ever shoot in kind of more sketchy neighborhoods where you need to be a little bit concerned about somebody wanting to rip off your camera? And then the second question would be, you take picture of people, anybody ever kind of get in your face about, hey, why are you taking my picture?
The first part, sketchy neighborhoods or areas, I think that it depends. There are certain areas that I would be, if it's worth the shot, right? It's one of those things that it's almost like you don't want to operate in fear, because then, there are a lot of, I think with street photography, there's a lot of not only fear of getting hurt, but fear of feeling embarrassed, fear of rejection, fear of looking silly. There's a lot of fear, attached to doing street photography. And I think that is what you're talking about, like the safety is, if I feel that safety will be a concern, then I will try to stay away. But if I feel there's something there that I can photograph, I'll jump in. Again, if it's worth the risk. But I think like for most people, this just address the fear of being embarrassed, looking silly, and just being rejected by people who don't want to be photographed. I think once we get through all those hoops, then we are going to do better as street photographers or photographers in general. Yes, and I think like, sorry, Sheila had, she was raising her.
Have you ever staged a photograph?
No, I did pose people for portraits, and that's something that we're going to talk about too. So whenever I do street photography, they are all candid. Okay. When I mean candid, I didn't go like, do this, do that. They did it on themselves. Now, there are certain situations where they might have acted a certain way because I was present, right? And that's something that we should not get hung up on. The idea that we're going to be invisible somehow, right? So if you are there, you already changed the scene, right? Even if you think about this, right? If you walked in a room and you see a security camera, you are already going to act different. There's nobody there, but you're already acting differently. So there's no point in trying to hide yourself or cloak yourself. I think what's more important is actually to be present, to let your presence known and let them know that, hey, I'm here, I'm taking pictures, may it be verbal or just you being there. So sometimes what I would do is I walk in the scene, have the camera, just take pictures randomly and not take pictures of the actual people that I want to take pictures of. Because what's going to happen is that they see me, I see them, I smile, I start taking pictures right here. They were like, oh, he doesn't bother. They continue doing what they're doing. And the next thing you know, I'm right here, right? And they don't care at that point, right? So yeah, I never stage a photo. And we're gonna talk about street portraiture, and that's a totally different kind of category.
My question.
All right.
Okay, awesome.
I have a question here, John.
Yes.
So how do you draw the line in terms of when you're going to stop taking someone's image? You know, in other words, they may not confront you, but they might be giving you the evil eye. How do you determine whether you're going to continue or not?
If they give me the evil eye, I think like I'm done. I think like the way I see it is that I don't mean harm. And if I perceive that I'm doing harm, or if someone is unhappy with me, my presence being there, it's not worth it, right? Because it shows in the image. It's like, and that's just my personal take on it, right? I want to be able to show the images and the people that are in the images when they see it and feel joy seeing themselves in it. So if someone, and it has never happened to me, I'm happy that it has never happened, that someone asked me to delete their image. If someone would go to me, hey, I saw what you did, delete my image, I'll be like more than happy to do so. Because at that point, it's not in good faith, right? So I'll just delete it, no problem. That said, I've only been denied once when I went out to photograph, and it's mainly like, no. And that's it. I've been lucky enough to not have any adverse reaction to me being there photographing. Yeah.
How long do you usually plan for a street photography outing that you do?
For the workshop?
No, just for you, when you go out.
For when I go?
Mm-hmm. Do you plan a whole day's worth where you go?
Depends. Sometimes I do plan it out for a whole day. Sometimes I just out on a whim, like going to work, right? So if let's say, or even when I'm with my significant other, with family, right? And pretty much like shoot whenever you can. Don't go like, oh, I'm gonna shoot tomorrow and plan it out. Just always shoot. Always have the mentality that you're always shooting, even without your camera. Because then that practices your eyes to see, right? If you see something, you know, those moments you go like, I wish I had my camera. I wish I had my camera, right? That's good because that means you're looking, right? So always look. And if you have your camera, take the shot. So I do those kind of shots, right? When I'm in vacation with my girlfriend, I would take the time. I'm like, hey, real quick, let me take this, take the shot, right? Or I'll tell a story about a photo where that actually happened, but I'll talk more.
I'm just going to check in with our people online. Does anybody have any questions right now for John before he moves on? I'm looking at the chat. If you do, write your question. All right.
Yeah. One,
Oh, two questions
one,
behind
two.
me. All right, sorry. Jerry.
Are there any subjects that you just decide, I'm not taking this, like a passed out homeless person on the street or something like that? It's in the scene, you just go, I'm not gonna do that.
Yes. So I try to avoid taking pictures of the homeless. And if I have had any photos with the homeless in it, actually I have one photo of a homeless person. And I try to avoid it, but there should be a good reason why you would take the shot. Not just because they're homeless, but they're homeless and because, right? And I think, and it's also, you have to check yourself, the intent why you're taking a photo of somebody, right? If your intention, like, so the way I see it is like, I check myself first. For example, if I look at a homeless person, am I taking a photo of this homeless person because like, oh, look, sad? Or am I taking a picture of this person because like, it is sad, the situation, and then look, right? And I'll show you a photo of that later on my website, please. Oh, actually, let me show you right now so that I can better. But for the most part, I try not to. So it's been a while. I'm trying to remember where it is. Right here. And for this man, I've actually hang out with him for a little bit before I've actually taken the shot, right? And this is something that he, if I remember correctly, he struck a conversation with me because I stand in the street, right? And then he would talk to me. And then as I'm walking, we start talking, and then this is in Market Street, and then they have those pictures in the back. And then the moment we got to that part is like he's chatting, and I was like, I saw that. I had to take the shot. Right? But it's never like, let me look and find a homeless person, take a picture of that homeless person. But yeah. Does that make sense?
Do you ever take macro shots?
I do. And funny you said that. Let me show you. So this is a series that I call Shooting Strangers. So I photograph random people, I ask them to pose. Some of them, so this is this is just right outside a, what do you call this? A Goodwill, right? I was in Goodwill, trying to look for some, good stuff to take home. And then as I was walking out, I saw them. I was like, you guys are looking cute. Can I take a picture of you guys? And they were like, yeah, sure. And so I took their pictures and they were very happy with it. And I said, like, I'm a street photographer and this is what I do. And they asked if they can get a copy of it. And then a week after I gave them a print. Let's get back to these macro. Very rarely, but if it's required to get the shot, I will. So this is a built-in macro setting on the X100, so I can get really close and take the picture. So the story behind this is that this guy, he is a student at CRC. And at that time, I was going to CRC for some classes. And I saw him holding this bird on the floor. I said, like, what happened? What's wrong? And he said, like, oh, this bird is injured. I'm going to take it to the clinic vet. I can't remember exactly, but he's going to take the bird to be taken care of. And I said, hey, do you mind before you take the bird, can I take a picture of you and your bird? And he said, yeah, sure. So I just find this like shaft of light. And I asked him to, okay, get the bird as close as you can to your face. And I just like the beak, the nose, just the shape, and took the shot, and I switched to the macro.
Anybody else? I think we're good.
Good. All right. So I'm going to move on and show you guys my how I actually photograph. It's going to be a video. So I'm going to try to sync up with Mark again. And then after I do the video, I'm going to switch to the contact sheet. which is, like I said, the pictures of how before I got to the shot. All right. So what you're gonna see next is a video of me, first person perspective, out there on the street, taking some street photography. I promise it's not gonna be long. It's about probably 4 minutes. All right, I'm just gonna get it ready. I'm gonna pause it. All right, Mark, I'm gonna count down in 3, 2, 1, and play. All right, at this point, I am trying to compose so that I can have some of that reflection of the wall, and you'll see with the final image. Trying to compose it, see how like I'm seeing the reflection of him. That's the final shot. All right. Question about the process? Comments? Sorry.
How much exposure compensation did you do just then?
Okay.
How much exposure compensation did you just do for the photo compared to the video?
So in terms of the difference between how the general exposure versus how I expose, I usually expose for the highlights. And that's something that I, again, in the workshop, I'm gonna go through more in depth. But pretty much what I do is I expose for the highlight, and I keep it a setting of, for the most part, if it's a sunny day, it's a 250 at f16. It's a sunny 16 rule. 250 f16 at ISO 200, and it's go out there and shoot like that. So that means whenever I shoot, I always look for the highlight, and whatever's in darkness, I don't even worry about it. Does that make sense? So it simplifies my process. The way I see is simplified. That means I don't get distracted with elements that I don't need to photograph. So if something's in shadow, unless it's very, very good moment, or the content is, you know, high value, then I would take the time to change my setting. But if it's not, I just ignore everything in the shadow, right? So, and in my workshop too, I talk about like the 2 different ways I shoot, which is the contrasty look like that, and the more like subdued look. And I do a different way of shooting, and then the type of people that I photograph are different as well. Does that, yeah? Anybody? Good? Yes.
We have to train you all.
Okay, in a shot like that, I mean, my first thought was, did you do any post-processing that essentially made the things you didn't want to come out dark while your subject was bright?
Good question. Believe it or not, it is, there's not a lot of post-processing in that. If anything, it will be color that I post-process. I don't remove images from the, or things from the image. And the exposure wise, I already set it like that. So that's how it is, on camera. And the reason behind it is because, like I said, I keep it at 250 f16. So that means everything that's bright will stay bright, and everything in the dark will be dark. So have a natural high contrast look to it for that situation. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how often do you convert and shoot in color and then convert it to black and white? Or do you do that much black and white stuff?
I used to when I
Why?
got started.
Why did you not do it any longer?
I discovered Alex Webb and Guriard and the likes. Before I still do love the work of Andre Cartier-Bresson, and I love how he photographs the composition. And so in the beginning, I think like I tried to copy him and do a lot of black and white conversions of my images. And then I realized that I actually enjoy color. And so when I started photographing, after I learned of Alex Webb and Guriard and photographers who shoot in color, how much I like it too. So after that, I pretty much almost exclusively shot in color, unless I would do some documentary for photojournalism work. And that mainly I do black and white for photojournalism work is to have that cohesion, because then you have multiple images. And to tell you honestly, I'm just not very good at matching and correcting for what do you call this color cast. There you go. So it's me being kind of like lazy and just like make it black and white, color cast gone, right? So, all right, let's move on to the next part, and let me know if I'm going over the time or. Okay. All right. So what we're going to see next is the
Actually, while you're looking,
contact sheet. Yep.
while you're looking for that, Mike, while you're looking for that, I just want to remind everybody and also the people at home or on Zoom that next month we are not having a presenter because you are the presenters. You're going to take what you learned tonight from John about street photography, and you're going to use the next month to do your own street photography and put together a series of 6 images. And you're going to send them to me and share, and I'll be getting something out. But I want you to be thinking about this while we're listening to John tonight. I will accept anything you want to give us. There are no rules, except whatever rules John gives us tonight.
Oh. Let's pull on this. And then I wasn't sharing my screen earlier. I just want to make sure that the people at home are there, they're seeing it. Okay. So this is pretty much my digital contact sheet, right? So this is the starting point on the left, right? And this is downtown Sacramento, right across from the Catholic Church. Can't remember the name of the church. And so I start with identifying my canvas, right? And identify my canvas as the floor with the leaves, the dry leaves, right? And so the first thing I did was to minimize distraction. I elevated myself and pointed my camera down to the floor, right? And for me to be able to do that, I had to step on top of a trash bin, right? And at that point, my thinking was, it doesn't matter if I look silly as long as I get the shot, right? So I was on top of a trash bin. It's a green trash bin, the metal ones. And I'm like this, right? Next, I have my my canvas. Now I just need the elements to come in, right? And so I waited, right? And I was staying there long enough for people to look at me and just ignore me, right? From afar, they see this guy on top of a trash bin with a camera, they start ignoring you, right? Because just imagine if the situation is different. What if the first person, the middle, right here, right? If she is passing by and I'm running to get to the trash bin so that I can get the shot, right? Doubt she'll be, rattled. Well, why is this guy doing that? But since I'm already there, they are coming into my space. I claimed that space, right? So most of the time, people, instead of saying, don't take my photo, You know what they tell me? Anybody can guess? Yes, they apologize. They apologize for coming in my frame. That's the worst that they can do to me at that point, because I've already established myself that I'm the photographer there. I'm taking picture of the scene. You're crossing my path, right? So, you know, keep a space for yourself and feel comfortable in that space, right? So now I'm just waiting. So the first person walk in, I was like, let me take a shot. Cool. But it needs more. So I waited a little bit. She passed by just a little bit more. And I'm looking to my right. She's coming in the frame. And I see that. And then just so happened that another person is walking that way. And that created that line. Right? And this is the final shot. Right? There's no content here, really. There's no like couples kissing, no girl with a red flower, no saying goodbyes, nobody's falling down, no burning houses, right? But with the composition, right, and the elements coming together, you can form a story behind it. Each of us will have a different story, but it was my responsibility to bring that scene for you to tell your own story. So I'm being subjective. I found this interesting. I found that this what works. That's why I took the photo, presented it to you. Now it's up to you to take the story and let it live.
All right. One of the things I noticed about this picture, which is rather interesting, is the cracks or the borders between the concrete sections. Was that just by serendipity, or did you actually look at that as a way to kind of even divide up your canvas?
You mean this area? And
look at the lower left corner, and you can see from there, they're starring out from that central point, right? At your feet.
No, no, thank you. Look at that. I'll claim it. Oh, no, it's not. No. And that's awesome. Now I see it. Now that you pointed it out. No, I wasn't. No, that wasn't part of my intention. My intention was just, I need a clean canvas, so to speak, so that there's no other elements that are going to be distracting. So no, yeah, but thank you. Look at that. My next workshop, I'm going to talk about this photo a little bit differently now. All right. Do you guys want to look at the next one? All right. So the next one is this one right here. So again, I look for a canvas, Uniqlo wall in San Francisco. And I use the same technique, the 250 f16. Oh, hello guys. Let's minimize. Click something. So you'll see that my setting here will be 250 hit of a second, f16 at 200 of ISO, right? So now I'm looking at the wall. Let me wait. I was like fascinated how the different levels of the passersby will have different exposures, right? So some of them will be complete silhouette, and some of them will be partially lit, and some of them will have almost like spotlight quality to them. So my goal was to have those and to see in a way that they end up being interesting, right? I'm shooting for form again. Oh. Gonna have to this way. Oh, there's a lag. Apologies. There you go. Any questions? It's just a simple process in terms of you just have to be disciplined on how you get to the shot, right? In my workshop, I'm also going to talk about the decisive moments per se, where I had to take the shot as it happens. And those happen, and you just have to be ready for them. Okay. but pretty much shooting for form gets you disciplined, ready when the moment happens, right? Okay. Any questions, guys? I have one more part, two more parts that I want to show. Yeah. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Hold everything.
Yeah, that's good.
I have a question. Did you choose to not crop out the far left side and leave that black and white image for some kind of juxtaposition or?
Yes. Yes. So when I composed it, I already wanted to have that. Not because like, oh, great, I'm gonna have a black and white Bay Bridge photo, but more so that my frame is this, and this is what I'm given, and I'm gonna try to respect that frame as much as I can, and I'm gonna try to work the elements in so that it makes sense or it works together as a whole. And I think by having that mentality that you have to respect the frame, and try not to crop it. And don't get me wrong, I crop some of my images, but have the intention of keeping it to where you want it. And I think you're mentioning like walking closer. And the reason why I didn't walk closer for this one is because like I wanted to have the layers of people. If I walk closer, then I would have been left with 2 more layers. But I wanted to have, like I said, like the silhouette, partially lit, and the spotlight. And it's kind of like a compromise that you do.
I noticed that you didn't adjust for perspective so that the lines are sort of at askew. And what is your thinking about that when you're doing street photography in post-processing?
Well, I find that like, for me, it's more like, this is the lens that I have. And this is what happens when you tilt pretty much like not parallel to the lines. I let it be. Because then I just don't want to limit myself in terms of, I want it to be aesthetically perfect. And now I'm always trying to change in post or like have my mentality like, okay, I need to change this in post. But like more so like, okay, I'm confined to this position. I'm confined to this distance. I know that these are the compromises that I had to have for the scene. How do I still make it work? Cool. All right. So now I'm going to talk about the other ways I shoot street photography. So for the majority of the part of what we've talked about is the candid stuff. Now I've shown you briefly a little bit of street portraiture. So this is the time where I actually ask the people that I meet on the street to pose for me, right? And not in a way that it's going to be too much in terms of like, I don't ask them like, okay, now do this, now do that. No, it's more so like move right here, turn your face slightly, look at the camera, and just be yourself for the most part, right? It's very natural, right? So let me just show you quickly this photo. So this is from the last workshop. This was this Saturday. So me and the attendees of the workshop, we walked around close by the Viewpoint workshop, and we saw this couple. They're actually brothers and sisters. And I asked them like, hey, do you guys mind if you guys post for us? And they're like, yeah, sure. So pretty much what I asked them to do is I asked her to just turn her face towards where the light is. I ask her to just like, okay, for the meantime, close your eyes because I don't want you to go like, blind because it's really bright light. But I do want the light to show you kind of like sculpt her face, right? I ask him to go slightly behind her and then have his shoulders straight at me, right? Because I want to show strength, but at the same time, I want to show a good balance between the two of them. And I asked him to close his eyes. And I asked him to keep his eyes open, and I mean, keep his eyes closed and have her eyes open. And I just asked her to, I want you to, when you open your eyes, just don't have any kind of feelings at all. Just, I want you to have kind of just feel blah, right? And then she opened her eyes, and that's how I got a shot, right? Street portraiture, it took us probably like 5 minutes maximum to take the shot, right? And you know, you just have to at this point know your lighting. And again, 250 f/16. That's it, 250 f/16. And then I just put the parts of the face that I need to be exposed, and the parts of the scene that I don't want to be in darkness, right? Keeping it simple. Because the last thing you want to do is when you're in that situation to fumble through your controls, through your settings, because they don't know you, right? And if you do that, you kind of like lose their trust, right? So you want to be confident and not do all this to your camera. You have to be able to talk to them, and then explain to them what you're doing and take the shot as quickly as possible because they have to go somewhere. I was in San Francisco in the BART station. I saw them and I was like, you guys are awesome looking couple. Do you guys mind if you guys pose for me real quick? And I said, they're like, what do you want us to do? I said, like, just stand up and just hold on the railing and just look at me. And then that's it, right? One more here. So this guy right here, right? San Francisco, right? And really good tip, if you want to get started with street portraiture, find people that have pets. They have you have more a better chance of getting them to let you photograph them. Okay, all you have to say like cool pet, you know, or like cute dog, cute cat. Can I take a picture of you and your cat, you and your dog, right? And then think about it this way. He knows that he's gonna have some people photograph him. You don't go and wake up in the morning, put a snake on your neck and walk downtown San Francisco and think like, don't take a picture of me, right? So when you see someone having some kind of like an outfit, right, that you think that they're going to be proud of, they would like to be photographed. Let me show you a few more. Let's see. And am I still sharing my screen? Is that correct? I just want to make sure everyone. Okay, I just let me just share my screen to everyone at home as well. Okay. So under my Shooting Strangers website, and this was the time when I was still shooting with my film camera. This is the Leica M3 with film. And I would walk in San Francisco, and then this guy had an amazing kind of like fit together, you know, he's looking like he's going to do some fashion, you know, fashion walk or something. And I just asked him like, hey, can you stay right here? I'm gonna take your picture. And he was really like, he looks kind of like quiet, just like, you know, he just like walked there. As soon as I bring the camera up, he just went. I was like, cool, you know, and I didn't ask him to do that, right? Because then people who has that like pride on what they wear and who they are will shine in front of a camera. And it's your job to identify those people that are willing to be in front of a camera, right? Let me keep going here.
There's a question from one of our Zoom people. Do you offer to send your portrait subjects a copy?
Yes, and the way I do it is I don't ask for their information. I give them my information. I give them my Instagram account. I give them my website. I give them my phone number. The reason behind that is I don't want them to feel that I'm taking their information first for their safety. Second, I don't want to be responsible in remembering to send the photo. I want them to ask me for it, right? Because then I photograph a lot of people. If I try to remember, whose number is this and who is, I don't want to send the wrong picture to another person, right? But if you give them your information, it's their responsibility now to reach out to you to ask for their picture. And when they do, you ask them, tell me where did we meet? What do you look like? And I will send you the photo. And then, and with this way too, they trust you more because you're not asking for their information. You're giving them your information. The brothers and sisters that I photographed last workshop, we follow each other now on Instagram, right? I gave them the photo. They reposted the photo. They were really happy about it. I'm really happy how it turned out. And that's just the way I operate. I don't want to ask for anybody's information. I want to give them my information. Yes.
Great.
So do you send them the full size digital file? Do you send them like a print? What do you send them?
If they ask for print, I will be more than happy to give them a print. Most of the time I give them a full JPEG size so they can print with it. I don't mind them having to be able to print big. I don't really mind that at all. But I don't give them my raw copy. The raw stays with me. I give them the version that I post online, but it's not going to be the biggest file. It will be, the file that I would give them is something that they can print easily 8x10, something that they can put on social media. Yep. All right. So just a few more of the portraits. Right. I stopped her. She works downtown Sacramento, and I saw her like, excuse me, you look amazing. And then she's rushing for work. This was early in the morning, right? I believe this is about like 6:30 before it was like around that 7 a.m. And then she's like, oh, thank you. And I was like, can I take your picture real quick? Okay, really quick. And then she just did this. It's one of those things that you cannot pose. This is something that you're gifted. You're gifted this kind of pose, right? Because then I don't have an idea how to pose her. She posed herself in a way that's uniquely her, but she posed herself in a way that's uniquely her to me, if that makes sense, right? Because then the way she would pose herself to somebody else in this room will be different, because it's the brief moment in time that you guys were together. It's kind of like an agreement that this is our relationship, and then after that, it's broken off. Right? So if you think of it that way, then each shot will be personal, subjective, and it's more meaningful. That makes sense, right? I saw her, I love her outfit, and I said, like, let me take a picture of you and your dog, right? It's one of those situations. And it said, you're glowing. And then she goes, thank you so much for saying that, because I just found out that I'm pregnant. Right? So these are the stories, these are memories that, I get when I do the street portraits. This guy, he's looking all cool with his dog in downtown San Francisco in Market Street, that all we had to do in terms of communication was like, I had my camera, he's right there, and I looked at him, did one of these, and then he looked at me and he did one of these, and I took the shot, and then he did one of these and I did one of that, and I moved on. That's it, right? Sometimes it doesn't have to be much, right? And it's different for each of us. It's different because like we are in different stages in our life, different situations, different personalities, but use that to your advantage, right? Use it to reach out to other people. You've seen that one? a couple in Old Town in Sacramento. And then you'll notice that it's a different format. I use my rolly cord in that one. It's a square format. And this one is one of those, again, he's had his headphones on. And the reason why I asked him to photograph, because he's already standing in that light. It was already perfect. All I had to do was ask for the permission to take the shot. So all I had to do was like, hey dude, is it okay if I take the shot? And it's like, huh? I was like, can I take the shot? And I was like, yeah. And then I put it back on and it's just like, and then I take the shot, right? He was already perfect. I didn't have to move him at all. He was already in the light, right? And sometimes I choose my victims that way. Now I choose the people that I photograph that way. It's like, they are in good light already. Like everything looks good. It's just a matter of me taking the shot, right? And whenever I do this kind of photos, I make sure that I identify them as street portraitures, right? So it doesn't get confused for street photography in that way, in the candid way, right? Black and white.
So far, all the stuff I've loved black and white stuff, and that's just personal for me.
Yes, and this is like my older work. You'll see that right here. So I'll skip that one. We'll skip this one is newer work. So this is when I start doing more color work. Okay, that's black and white. But moving forward, they're all color, 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 color. And then sometimes it's not even in the street, right? So this one right here, I saw, it's in Sacramento again. It's a small bookshop and glass windows. I saw him, he's the guy, you know, taking care of the store. And I went in and I asked, like, there's no customers at that time. I was like, do you mind if you pose for me? And it's like, yeah, sure, man. And then he grabbed the chair and then turned it. And I said, like, okay, move a little back just a little bit more. So we get that like spotlight on you, give that like rim light on him, and took the shot. Yes.
So I've noticed that a lot of the shots that you're showing us have a tremendous amount of headroom, almost as much as the subject. Did you already discuss why you crop that way?
No. Okay. Well, I do not know in particular why I do that. I guess like that's something like subconscious on how I compose. I do compose very differently when I'm working for my day job. I used to be, for 8 years, I used to do senior portrait photography for people graduating from high school. So I would take their senior portraits. I did that for 8 years. And then after that, I quit that job. I got a new job as a photographer for a digital ad agency. So whenever I do digital ad agency work, I don't find myself shooting this way. I don't know why. I'm gonna try to figure that out myself. It's a pattern.
Yeah.
It's a pattern. Okay. Well, yeah, I am not, yeah. Something I have not really thought about. Thank you for bringing that up.
Journey.
But see, this one doesn't have that much headspace. Because I think like for this one, I am really, when I saw her, I just loved her look. When I saw her, I was like, let me take a picture of you. And I wanted to focus on that look and nothing else, right? I just asked her like, stand right here. I'm just gonna frame up and just look at the camera. No, this is not F16. And I've talked about that on my workshop again. So when you guys get a chance, attend my workshop. So for this one right here, you'll notice that she's in shade, right? And so the way I shoot again is I do 250 F16, but I expose for the shadow as well. And I try to remember that exposure for shadow. It adjusts my aperture. So this is probably 250th, maybe 1/125th, but it's probably at F2 or F2.8. Because then I would have, so the way I shoot, so will be F16, right? Shutter speed the same. If I'm photographing on a light, it will stay the same. All I have to do is, that's it, and I'm shooting right here. at f2. So I will find the difference between when I'm shooting bright light and when subdued light. That makes sense. So I memorize what my setting is for subdued light, memorize my setting for harsh light. And I just go back and forth in the aperture, right? And again, if someone has a pet, a unique pet, they will be more likely to let you photograph them. And at night, street photography at night, you can do that as well. So for this one right here, you'll notice that I cropped it as a square. It's actually photographed by my first X100. I cropped it as a square because like the way this happened was I was across the street. It's nighttime. I saw her. She saw me. And, you know, I walked towards her. She doesn't look like she's, you know, scared of me or intimidated. So I asked her, hey, I really like your look. So I'm sorry if I was looking at you. And she's like, no, no worries. And I was like, do you mind if I take your portrait? And she said, yes. And, but it's pretty dark, right? So how did I do the lighting? So what I had to do was I asked her, hey, go ahead and pull out your phone. I'll have my phone out. Both of us will have our flashlight on. I will light you this way. Do me a favor and then do this while I'm doing this. And so my composition was really off because as you can imagine, I'm doing this, kind of disbalancing it while I'm trying to light her face, doing this, reaching in with this camera, right? So for that, I had to crop a lot right here on the side because then my hand kind of like is in the frame. Her arms right here is doing this, right? So we had to make adjustments for that one. Yes.
I'm learning.
Okay.
You're good.
Well, I would be able to see the subject there. My question is, when you have to take a photograph using that type of light arrangement, did you do this in one take or did you have to do multiple takes to adjust your exposure?
Multiple takes to adjust the exposure, definitely. Right? Again, it's not like I have master just like looking at the light, this is my setting and take the shot. No, I set it to where I think it's going to be correct. And I just adjust for it. Like I'll look at the back of the screen. Oh, it's a little bit underexposed. Let me change it up a little bit. Especially for situations like this at night, you can't use the 250 f16 rule anymore. Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Anybody else? Oh. Yeah.
The other one, we got the hat.
This one?
Yeah,
Yep.
love it. Love it.
Thank you. Yeah. So pretty much I saw him, spots of like speckled light through a tree. And I asked him to move on to that spot. And so I just wanted to have kind of like a spotted exposure. When you're doing something like this, you just have to be precise in terms of what you want to be lit and not lit, right? So my intention was to have definitely his eyes, most of his face, and the family on his chest, the tattoo family, right? So that was my goal. So I had to coach him, okay, step a little bit to the left, step a little bit to the right, move front just a little bit, back a little bit, there you go, lean forward just a little bit, and then I take the shot, right? But you don't want to overdo it because the more you do all that, you lose the emotion, you lose the moment. So you want to keep it brief and keep it simple, right? So I don't go, hey, let's go walk this way. This is like, no, I just like, it's mainly like, if I see you right here, I'm probably going to move you right here, right? So it's not much of a movement. Then real quick, I have a few more minutes. I'll answer, yep. 5 minutes, all right. So lastly, let's look at during COVID, right? So these are just like images that I've taken during COVID time. SF MoMA. Chinatown. So this one right here, this is during the start of the COVID outbreak. And so, you know, it was really scary at that time. So when I'm taking photos, I was on my bike. So I would bike. So I was biking right here, and then I stopped and I said, "Hi guys," and just like take the picture and just bike some more, you know? Pumpkin patch. Not pumpkin patch, like a corn maze. It's in the biggest corn maze. Yes. This is like a kind of like a short walk that I did right in front of the apartment that I was staying at the time. So it's been a while since I photographed because of COVID. Everything eased down a little bit. I went out for a walk. And I saw them and I asked if I can follow them around, take your pictures real quick, and then they're fine with it. Okay. COVID time portrait. On vacation. And then I just ask, so I approached them. And I asked them, I'll be taking pictures here and you guys are gonna be in the frame. Are you guys good with that? I asked them and they said, yeah, go ahead. And I started taking pictures. Right. This is Travertine Hot Springs towards Mammoth. And like I said, guys, most of the time we're just afraid of asking, afraid of putting ourselves out there. Afraid of feeling that we're stepping our boundaries. It's the fear, right? That's I think like that's the hindrance. That's the hurdle we first have to cross over. But yeah, I do enjoy street photography. I hope that this presentation helped you guys kind of like have more info about street photography, how to approach it, and get an insight how fun it really is to do. So I do a lot of photography. It's my full-time job is as a photographer, as a commercial ad photographer. I enjoy that a lot. I'm lucky enough to do full-time photography, and in my pastime, I do more photography. So,
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
There we
you.
go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
I hope that you are all as inspired as I am to get out there and sort of take on John's persona and get out there and have some fun with taking street photography, because that's going to be your goal this month. John, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
When you have your next workshops, will you please send me an email
Yes,
so I can
will
share
do.
with everybody?
Will do.
Just in
Will
case.
do.
All right, 10-minute break. It is right now 7:29. Let's come back and be in our seats in 7:40. Okay, and we'll go to the next part of our evening. That was great.
Thank you.
So cool. I loved it. So inspired.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. this moment. I love that the nose of the cub and the mom are barely touching, so it gives that tension. And a very well composed image. The only thing that I would say is how I see a little bit of glow between the cub and the background. It might be a little bit of dodging that kind of overlap on the edge. But other than that, great image.
And the photographer is Janice Rossner. This next image is Skellig Michael Gannett.
So first, this is a sharp image of a flying bird that's in front of a busy background, which is a feat in itself. Kudos to the photographer for getting this bird sharp and using enough depth of field to have the whole bird sharp, but the background blurred. Technically, this was not an easy shot with the white bird against a dark background. If the photographer hadn't been attending to the exposure on the bird, it would have been easy to blow it out. Nice job with all of the technical aspects of this image. That said, the bird is small in the frame and there isn't a lot going on in the bottom third of the frame. I did experiment with cropping the image a couple of different ways, which made the bird larger in the frame and in my opinion, made the image stronger. Really nice work.
And the photographer is David Wong. This next image is mom keeping an eye on her nest.
I love how the shape of the bird is how it's perched, and it's just the swirling neck, how it leads to and out of the branches. One thing that I would like to have a little bit more is separation between the branches and the bird. So maybe a shallower depth of field would have helped that. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. The maker is Eleni Prusa, and that ends fauna. Now we are in the flora category. This first image is tulip tree dancers.
So I love tulip trees and have one in my yard, so I'm appreciating the sentiment behind this image. The pinks are lovely and the photographer did a good job with the exposure of a very contrasty scene as none of the bright areas are blown. I think one thing that could have helped this image would have been to shoot it either early in the morning or in the late afternoon when the sun wasn't so bright. Another option would be to use a diffuser to even out the light. I'd also encourage the photographer to move to the left or the right and find a point of view where there's more separation between the blooms, which would allow for their shapes to fully stand out.
The photographer is Anne Westling. This next image, trio of tulips.
This is nice. It's very well done. The lighting is perfect. Love the subdued light. I love how the lighting on the vase itself, how it starts with the light, dark, and then light. There's mastery to how this was photographed, and it definitely is a great work. Love it.
And the maker is Suzanne Hamilton. This next image, fiddleneck flowers attracts pine vine swallowtail.
So I can see that a lot of thought and planning went into this image. It's well composed and the photographer used enough depth of field to have the swallowtail be fairly sharp, but still have the background soft. There's a nice wing position on the swallowtail and I like the gentle curve of the flowers leaning towards the swallowtail. My only criticism is that I wonder if the shutter was faster, if the swallowtail would have been sharper, but this is minor. I think this is a really lovely image.
And the photographer is George Pelpel. This next image, Bobby Socks trees.
I love how there's a full control in terms of exposure, in terms of like not blowing out the snow. It's very easy to blow out the snow or underexpose it to compensate. And the photographer did a great job of making sure that the exposure of the snow is just right. And also how the bark of the trees, the exposure are really great, even if they are naturally darker than the snow. Composition of the image is pretty good as well.
And the maker is Janice Rosner. This next image is calla lilies.
Well, just wow. This is absolutely gorgeous. It's a beautiful composition. The exposure was spot on with enough depth of field to have everything in the image sharp, right down to the water droplets and textures on the petals. I don't know if you can see from here, but there's a lot of detail in the petals with the veining and everything all through the image. I love the background, and this is a definite wall hanger.
And this wall hanger was made by Barbara Summers. Now we are in the natural landscape category. This first one is titled Eastern Sierra.
I love the colors in this image. I love how the depth of field is, it takes me from front to back. I would have wanted a linchpin in front of in the foreground of the image to kind of like hold my gaze for a little bit longer. I feel that since it's the depth of field is great from front to back, I linger a lot all over the image. I just needed a little bit more of somewhere I can hold my gaze for a little bit longer.
And the maker is Craig Worson. This image is titled Yuba Reflection.
So I can see why the photographer took this image. The colors and the reflections are stunning. When I opened this on my computer, nothing was sharp, but I made the image smaller and then the trees became sharper. So I don't know if that was something with the resolution of the submitted image. I also noticed a difference when I viewed this image from across the room as the trees became less dominant and the colors stood out more. When I viewed this image closer to the screen, the trees steal the show. It looks like the photographer focused on parts of the trees, or the small branches grabbed the autofocus, which I know I've had happen to me. I'm wondering how the image would be different if the photographer focused on the water and let the trees be out of focus, and if that would diminish their prominence in the image.
And the photographer is Gary Kartstaffner. This next image is Serene Teton Pasture.
I love this image. I love how the three horses in the middle are brown, black, brown in terms of coloring. It makes the horse in the middle stand out a lot more from the rest of the horses. And it holds my gaze long enough to appreciate the foreground and discover the backdrop after that and see those great mountain ranges.
And the photographer is Gary Emanuel. This next image, Merced River Swirls.
I think these swirls are interesting, and I love to watch the patterns created by the current. So this is a scene that would have intrigued me as well. To me, the real star of this image is the circular swirl on the lower left. And unfortunately, that swirl is overshadowed by the strong reflection. I think a diffuser may have helped with this. I also tried cropping this image in from the upper left. It made the swirl more prominent and kept my eye on the action.
And the photographer is John Sievert. This next image, The Queering, Scotland.
Such a beautiful image. I love the asymmetry of it. How on the far right of the image is a little bit heavier in terms of the range of the rock. It almost makes me feel that I can walk to it and view it from the top of that that rock right there. And I feel it just a story to it. It's beautiful.
And the maker is David Wong. This next image, titled Natural Symmetry in Charleston, South Carolina.
I really love these cypress trees that grow in the southern swamps. I think this image illustrates what's fascinating about these trees with all of their fins and interesting shapes. I also enjoy the reflections in the leading line to the tree that they create. The position of the tree in reflection divides the image right down the middle, which can be a difficult compositional choice. In this case, it leaves the tree trunk dominating the scene, and I think the interest in this image is lower where the tree meets the water. I tried a crop of the image from the right upper corner, which in my opinion emphasized the really interesting parts of this tree. On my monitor, the image appeared to be oversaturated, but this may be due to the differences between monitors. It looks a little different on this projector than it did at home.
And the photographer is Ingrid Lockhart. This next image, Yuba Bridgeport Poppies Reflections Sunset.
I love the exposure in this one. I believe this might have been a little bit of HDR. I like that I can enjoy the sun setting and also enjoy the colors of the grass in the foreground. The stream helps me, kind of guides my eyes from the front of the image to the back part of the image where the payoff is the sunset.
And the maker is Henry Goodman. Next image, Little Rainbow, Big Clouds.
I think that this is an effective composition. Positioning the houses and hills small and low in the frame shows how this storm is dominating the scene and conveys a message of power about the storm. I like the pools of water in the foreground, which also adds to the story of a downpour. I experimented with adding some contrast to the sky, which I thought gave the clouds more interest and power. I would also suggest brightening the rainbow, as on my monitor, I didn't immediately notice it, and it's kind of the same here, and I think that that's an important part of the image.
And the photographer is Eleni Prusa. Now we are into a new category, night photography. This first image is Legion of Honor Museum.
Very well done. This is not an easy photo to take. I see that there's fog and it added to the feel of the image. I love how, due to the slow shutter speed, that you see those light trails, and also how it pulled the green color from behind the building. Great image. Well done.
And the photographer is Ellen Davis. This next image, Steel City View.
So in my opinion, this is an effective composition that's technically excellent. The strong diagonal lines lead my eye into the scene and around through the city. The depth of field is adequate to create sharpness throughout the image, and the shutter speed is effective for creating enough blur in the water and roads that contrasts nicely with the busyness of the city. The photographer's treatment of the sky also works well to create interest in the upper third of the image without drawing the viewer's eye out of the image. The photographer also exposed the foreground well, leaving details in the blacks. I think the inclusion of the tracks with the red lights provided some interest in an area that otherwise wouldn't have had a huge amount of interest. It's a well thought out and executed image.
And the photographer is Mike Weitzman. That ends night photography, and we are now in the category of people. This first image is titled, "Don't Park Your Fire Here."
I love the slow shutter speed on this one. I love how the trail of fire was captured. And if you look at the end part of the fire in the bottom, it looks like the tail, and then the top part looks like the head of the dragon. It's very, very interesting. One thing that could have been improved was the placement of the, in terms of angling, because then the no parking sign is a little bit distracting. If the photographer would have angled just a little bit, maybe to the left or to the right, that might have been avoided. But yeah, I totally enjoy the trail of fire. Just it's really nice.
And the maker is Mike Weitzman. This next image, Arabia Belly Dance 2.
I like the nice even lighting and the position of the dancer in this image, especially in her hands, which tell the story of her dance. I also think the shadow of her hands on the curtain is a subtle but good compositional element. The line from her eyes could lead the viewer out of the frame, but in this case, I didn't find it too bothersome. Technically, the photographer did a good job with the exposure, getting detail in the red shoes, as well as pleasing tones on her skin. I don't have any real criticism of this image, as I think it's well executed with even lighting. My only thought was that the photographer might want to experiment with a slower shutter speed to show more movement in her hands and skirt.
And the photographer is Jonathan Beth. This next image is Hubert Sumlin.
I love the composition on this image. I love that the hat is cropped, that it wasn't the full image because it's about the motion of the guitar more than so his hat and the face of the person. By doing so, we are drawn to the guitar and the strumming and the details in the guitar, and also his shirt and the pins that he has on his shirt. I love the colors as well. Love the purple and the red. Very good image. I would say the only thing that I would try to improve on this one will be the lighting coming from the right. It seems like a harsh light. I know that that might be the lighting available, but if we work a little bit more on angling and maybe at a certain point we have a softer light, it would be a stronger image. But composition wise, color and the moment is perfect.
And the photographer is Mike Shea. This next image, Izani with parrots, 32 days old, Bridgeport, sweet light.
What a sweet photo and sweet family. This image is well exposed with a depth of field that blurs the background enough to make the family stand out. The skin tones are pleasing, and the photographer has chosen a time or and point of view that eliminates shadows on the subject. My only criticism is that this composition cuts the subjects off at the knees. Given that there isn't a lot going on in the bottom quarter of the photo, I experimented with cropping the image just below the baby's feet and just slightly on the top. This gives more real estate in the photo to the baby, who's the star of the show.
And the photographer is Shelby Cohen. That ends the people category, and now we are in photojournalism. This first image, Legacy 9.5.
I love how even if it's under the journalism category, that it's very artistic. I love the composition. I love the color, and it's still telling of what the person is trying to share in terms of information, but at the same time done it in a way that it's still very pleasing to the eyes.
And the photographer is Brad Oliver. This next image, TDS Endo.
So I think that this is an exciting image with this rider coming off of the seat. I identified a lot with this image in that I don't shoot sports, but I shoot a lot of moving animals and less than ideal backgrounds. And this image made me want to see the next frame to know if he went over the handlebars or he stayed on the bike. I was like trying to figure out, looking at this image and his hands off the handlebars. And but unfortunately, some of the drama and excitement is lost in the detail of the crowd and the trees. So it's tricky in that the photography needed enough depth of field to keep the rider in focus and the whole rider, and he's on a bike. So, you know, that's 6 feet that he needs to keep in focus. And it's hard to choose the background when you're photographing sports like this. One possibility would be in post-processing to select the rider out of the image and further blur or darken the exposure on the crowd and trees to make the rider stand out more. I also tried cropping this image from the lower right corner as a way to make the rider more dominant. I think that this is an exciting image with lots of potential, and I want to know if the rider stayed on his bike.
Well, maybe John will tell us. The maker is John Siebert. This next image, Springtime in the City.
This is a fun image. I would say as a journalism image, this will definitely make it to the feature column, feature image. It's just fun and it's light, and it's something that you don't necessarily think about, like how those plants get watered. But when you see somebody doing that, you're like, oh, you appreciate a lot more. It's really nice. Well done.
And the photographer is Gary Wade. This next and last image in this category, 1983 Castro Street Fair, San Francisco, handcuffed together.
So this is a well-exposed image with the range of tones handled well. There's detail in both the blacks and the whites, and the skin tones are pleasing. So I thought technically that was a feat in itself. It seems to be midday, and the photographer did a good job managing the shadows on the subjects. Clearly, there's a story here with two of the subjects on one side of the police line and the third subject on the other. Two of the subjects have their boots on the shoulder of the third subject, though the subject on the ground doesn't look distressed. So I wasn't quite sure what the story was, but I think that there is one. I think it's an interesting image. I mean, it made me think, it made me wonder. I had this up on my computer for a while looking at this. My only criticism is that I would decrease the depth of field to make the people in the background less prominent and distracting.
And the mystery photographer is Shelby Cohen. Now we are into the travel category. And the first and only image in travel, start traveling people, kayaks at Alaska Glacier.
This is beautiful. Well done. I'm not exactly sure how the photographer was able to get it from that vantage point. And I think that for me, it's just a unique vantage point to see it from that angle. I'm not sure if the photographer was on the other side and of the mountain, or if that person was on a boat of some sort, or if this was an aerial shot. Just the perspective is amazing because it gives you a sense of scale by looking at the people and the boat, and a sense of adventure as well. Just seeing the waterfall and how there's like small chunks of ice on the water, and they're just boating to it. It's very nice.
And the photographer is Craig Rorson. This next category is manipulated but realistic. His first image after the storm.
In my opinion, this is a beautiful image. I find the curve on the stem very pleasing, and the exposure on the reds is well done with lots of petal detail. I love the light reflecting through the red petals. I find the bokeh in the top left bright but pretty and not distracting. Parts of the water droplets on the stem are blown, but these areas are small and may not be an issue in printing. The flower reflection has beautiful tones, as does the stem. My only criticism is that the intersection of the right side of the reflected stem and water seems a little abrupt, as does the left edge of the flower and water. Given the other parts of the reflection, I would have expected a softer transition.
And the photographer and creator is Dave McClellan. This next image, trout or steelhead in the Yuba River.
Awesome. I love how it looks so abstract. It's something that I would like to have frame and hang on the wall. The only thing that I would wish was if it might be just the pixel count. It might be just how it was edited. I wanted a little bit more detail, but I like how abstract it did look.
And the photographer is Jerry Thomas. This next image, Panamint Range, Death Valley.
So I know this mountain range and I love atmospheric perspective. And it does look a little bit different here than it did on my, my monitor at home. I like the composition with the stair step effect of the mountains. So the photographer seemed to choose an effective point of view. I find the colors in the image pleasing, although on my monitor, the blues in the foreground were a bright blue and didn't seem believable. I enjoy the purple tones in the middle and back mountains, which I think adds interest. It was unexpected and I liked that. I tried doing a hue saturation adjustment on my monitor. It lessened the saturation in the middle and background, but not the foreground. I also increased the luminance with added more detail and atmosphere to the middle and back mountains, as well as more gradation in the sky. Its image makes me want to take another trip to Death Valley.
Absolutely. The photographer is Jerry Thomas. This next image is Flower Moon.
All right. I love how crisp and sharp the moon is. I love the color of the moon. One thing that I've noticed on the the top right of the image, you see that shadow. I'm not sure what's causing that. I think like without it, the image would be stronger. Maybe cropping it in so that not including the top right. But definitely a great image. Just need, I would say, a little bit of cropping so the moon is a little bit more centered and that top right shadow would be removed.
The photographer is Jonathan Beth. This last image in manipulated but realistic is shopping mall curves blended.
So kudos to the photographer for thinking about this interesting concept. The image is well exposed with lots of details in the different elements, and the photographer did a good job handling the range of tones from whites to blacks. I like that my eye wanders around the image, finding more and more details and curves to look at. There's so much detail in the original image, I'm thinking that it didn't need the additional layers. As I look at the image, my eye has a hard time finding a place to land, as this image can become a little visually overwhelming. I do think that this is an idea worth exploring.
And the photographer is Jeff Alspatter. This next category is black and white. The first image is titled Alone in the City.
Love it. Love the shadow cast by the on the stairs or the rays. It's not as visible on the screen on the projector, but I can definitely see that there's like rays coming down, and it almost like connects to the bottom part of one of the pillars, and the pillar in the bottom connects to the perspective like lines on the floor. So there's that. It also has that reflection on the ceiling of the tunnel. Great. And having that person just add scale to this place. I would have loved to have the person more in the middle than on the side. I think that would have been more ideal. I'm not sure if this is post. If it's post, we might as well have the person in the middle. I think it would have made it a stronger image. Now post or now post. All right. So still a great image.
And the photographer is Tom Quinn. This next image is A Day at Doulo, Ireland.
So in my opinion, this is a classic composition, and the image has a good tonal range from lights to darks. I love the soft tones in the water, and the whole image has a peaceful quality. The image is technically strong and sharp throughout from foreground to background. With the boats tied and the staircase leading up and out of the image tells a story, but also leaves the viewer open to mystery. Will someone come down the stairs to the boats? And who do these boats belong to? The detail in the boats adds visual interest, and the lighter, less detailed water on the left provides balance and visual rest from the darker, more detailed right.
And the photographer is Bill Wages. This last image in this category, Point Arena Pier at sunset.
I love the tension between the boat and the pier, the wooden part of the pier. It just like in terms of visual balance, it balanced everything out. I do wish that there's more the boat's a little bit more darker in comparison, kind of similar to how dark the pier is, so that it becomes more a complete silhouette. I think that would have been more in terms of drama. It would have added to the drama in the shape of the boat, so it's more graphic in that way. Yeah, beautiful image.
And the photographer is Gary Emanuel. That ends black and white. We are now in the color category. This first image, Pink Peony.
Okay, I have to start with a disclaimer that I love peonies and have them in my yard too, along with the tulip trees. I especially like the range of pink tones in the petals and the photographer's use of a background that doesn't compete with the intricacies of the flower. The drop shadow around the inner frame helps the image to stand out and provides a 3D quality to the image. When looking at the stem, the light seems to be coming from the right, yet there's no shadow on the left side of the stem. There also isn't a highlight on the right. What happened? Okay. On the right side of the leaf. So these elements appear not to belong together. This may be an accident of lighting or something that occurred with the processing, but it does interfere with my believing the image. I think this image has good promise and that these technical details could be easily fixed. Yes, and yeah, Kathy makes a good point. I should comment about this. In the color category, is not supposed to include manipulated images and Photoshop. Yeah.
But
So
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. So this maybe have been in the wrong category.
Maybe
Yeah.
creative, but it's
Yeah.
a beautiful image and it's by Suzanne Hambleton. This next image, jellyfish blast off.
Such a fun photo. I love the darkness of the background and how translucent and luminescent the subject is. I would say the only thing that I'm looking at it might have been like a little bit of motion blur on the leg part of the object, but I think like it's due to it is one of those things that's hard to avoid, especially in dark spaces. So the shutter speed's a little bit slower. But other than that, great composition. I love the juxtaposition between how luminescent this object is and the backdrop is how dark it is.
And the photographer is Tom Quinn. This last image in the color category, missing buttons.
So this is a really fun image. My eye quite enjoys wandering around the image, looking at all the different buttons. So while this type of image has the potential to be busy and visually overwhelming, I think the photographer's use of a solid background and the little frames around the buttons, which provide for some separation between the buttons, helps to organize what otherwise could be chaos. Technically, this image is well made with adequate depth of field and detail in the different textures. It appears the photographer went to a lot of trouble of providing for even lighting across the entire image, which eliminated shadows. Thus, any of the shadows in the image are due to the contours in the individual buttons themselves and provide more depth and detail to the individual buttons. In my opinion, this is a definite wall hanger.
And the photographer is Mike Shea. We are in our last category and last image. This last image is titled Enter the Dragon, and it's the phone category.
I love the colors in this image. I love the how the dragon face is facing the camera, is not away. And I just wish that the depth of field is a little bit more shallower in the background. And I understand that this is a phone camera, and that means by preset, if it's bright, it's gonna go for the lower aperture and therefore getting more in focus, depth of field. But other than that, the colors are great, and this is just a fun photo.
And the maker is Ellen Davis. I'll just make sure of that since I just closed this up. Oh, it is Ellen. Okay. Yes, Ellen Davis, thank you very much. And that concludes our critique for the night. Please thank John Hernandez and Janice Rossner for an amazingly wonderful critique. And if you'll look, it's only 8:35. And I didn't have to do the flashy thingy at them. All right, thank you all for being here tonight. See y'all next month. I'm looking forward to seeing your street photography photos, and I will get an email out describing the project. Thanks, and good night to all of you on Zoom.